This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
You're listening to The Reel Down, sponsored by Ketch Photo Release Tournaments. This is your premier tournament source. Here are your hosts, Sam Jones and Dan Perry. Welcome back. You're listening to The Reel Down on Paddle and Fin Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Jones. Got my good friend Dan Perry here with me tonight, as always. And in addition to that, we got none other than Cody Milton in the house.
The legend.
Yeah.
What's up,
We
guys?
can't have the audience going there.
Right?
Yeah.
What is going up, man? How are you?
I'm good. I'm home. You know, it sounds like I might be home for a few weeks, so it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Getting some things back to normal here, so it's been nice.
Right. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on in the world right now. We're going to talk a lot about what's happened over the last week with you, our last couple of weeks it is. And we'll get into some other stuff as well. But before we kick this thing off completely, a big announcement to make. If you haven't listened to the other segments, or if you didn't watch the go live on Monday night, I think it's on Monday night, right? Yeah, Monday night with Brian on the OG show, we made a big announcement, and I'm pretty excited about that. So, you know, for a little over a year now, I've been on the Angler Expert team, and it's been an awesome tool for me, and it's been a great community for me. They have a tremendous app that is so awesome for you on the water and off the water. One of the best things about the app, though, is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, is the community within that app. So that app has a feature or a section called the feed. It's also available on the angler.com website. But that feed is jam-packed with amazing content, from blogs to vlogs, YouTube, podcast, articles, all kinds of great stuff from the fishing world. Heavily dedicated to the kayak space, but there's also some really great content from the other parts of the industry as well. Well, big announcement to make is Angler, if you haven't heard it already, Angler is partnering with Paddle and Fin. Paddle and Fin's partnering with Angler, and we are going to have all of our content now available in that feed. So if you haven't had a chance, go out, download the app, create an account. It's completely free. You can get the bullseye. If you've never heard of that or seen that, we'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure, as the show goes on. But the app itself is free. That community experience is completely free. So go download that. It's just another way to get our content, and it's another way to get even more content from other creators like Paddle and Fin. So really awesome stuff there. So go check them out if you haven't had the chance to. Now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about another angler expert, Cody Milton. So Cody just wrapped up two big events. The Bassmaster Classic, in conjunction with that, was the first ever kayak series event from Bassmaster on Logan Martin. And directly from there, you traveled to Lake Fork, where you kind of did okay. You did okay there at Lake Fork.
He did okay. You
did all right.
100 inches.
Yeah, you did all right there. So we want to talk about both those events tonight, and there's a lot of interesting things that are going on, because in the middle of that is this outbreak, this pandemic, whatever you want to call it, that is being referred to as the coronavirus, or is it COVID or COVID-19, whatever it is happening. And then also, while you're at Lake Fork, there's a huge event, something called Major League Fishing. Maybe people have heard of it, going on there as well. And you've got a bunch of guys on the water doing that, and a bunch of spectator boats. So I think this is going to make for a really awesome podcast. I'm going to shut up now and kind of let Cody tell us a little bit about this. So let's start with Logan Martin, man. Tell us about that experience.
It was really cool. I mean, I had a pretty brutal day on the water, but the whole week there was actually a whole lot of fun. I was kind of one of those guys that you could say was worried about having 250 guys go into 16 ramps. Actually, like Sam, like the place I saw you, I absolutely crushed them there. I crushed them after I saw you. And I was like, there's going to be a bunch of people there. And I mean, I guess there was, but the winter still kind of came out from there. So after that was the only day I launched on the lake. I mean, I ended up doing a 7-mile float one day, and I did it like a 9-mile float the next day and another 7-mile float the following day. So I chose to get away from everybody and just, I was able to hit like a ton of eddy currents, which when the water was normal was like a lot of fun. We caught a bunch of like 16 to 19 inch spotted bass. Like, I don't think you could have like cracked 90 doing that, but you could have really had like, you'd have been in the 85 range pretty easily. But yeah, then I like get to my ramp at the dam, and as you saw, it's 6 foot high, and I'm like, almost turned around at that point, but I didn't. And I didn't catch a fish till 1:30 either. So, actually, it was pretty cool. I was going in. There's some ponds down to like the left end down there below the dam, and I ran into Christine Fisher. And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, if you want to keep going, might as well keep on drifting down, And so she did, yeah, because it was brutal. Like if you were that high up on the river, it was so much higher than if you were kind of on the main lake. Like I'm talking several feet higher.
Yeah.
Like it completely changed more upstream, but
I had fished it the Saturday before, and it was super high too, and it wasn't, maybe it wasn't as new where that much water, like it wasn't the first day after the giant rain, so maybe even though it's still really high, because whenever I went there a day of the tournament, I was like, well, it's high, but maybe it's okay, because the Saturday before, whenever I fished it, it was kind of almost that bad. So it's hard to know.
Yeah, it's interesting because other parts of the lake, there was very little fluctuation from northern mid lake all the way down. But yeah, like you guys were talking, up in the river was crazy, and then everyone pronounces it differently, but Chocolato or
Chocoloco, who knows?
Choloco, Chocolata, chocolate milkshake, whatever you want to call it. That was raging as well. The guys who were going to launch there, most of them didn't. And then some guys that did launch had to get rescued, I guess, or at least taken to another ramp, I heard, because it came up so much and continued to come up throughout the day, which is crazy. But yeah, you were able to find some fish. You said even if it took you till 1:30, you were able to put some fish in the boat.
Yeah, what was crazy was I could have done it all day long. It was it was the same spots. Like it was little baby creeks that had eddy breaks on them. But like in practice, I could crank them and hit the bottom in 4 foot on those drops to the main river. Well, that turned into 8 foot, and like I wasn't even able to hit it with a DT10.
Right.
And I didn't catch a fish cranking that entire like event, like not during the tournament. But it was. So we started throwing 3/4 ounce spinner baits and just holding them in the current.
Right.
Never even turned the rod handle. Just threw them in the current and held them. And those spotted bass just came up and smoked them. Like it was dumb. Like I would have loved to have known that by like 9 o'clock or something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There was so much debris in the water too that it would have.
Yeah.
Well, I can imagine, you were talking about throwing that crankbait and you just like talking about how the water came up. The first thing that came to my mind is like you guys had like at least 5 mile an hour current. So that crankbait would have just been washed right up anyway.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
So, you said that you caught him after I saw you. That's funny because we had loaded up and I was kind of like hanging out there at the ramp and I'm like, man, it's dark. Where's Cody?
Oh,
so you were out there just jacking them, huh?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I caught all of them on a big old blade bait, like a 3/4 ounce blade bait.
Nice.
Yeah.
I had a decent, well, not a good, but I had a decent day of practice there. I'd caught a limit worth of fish off of one spot and caught some others. And I was going to go there, but like you, I was so worried about it being jam packed that I didn't. And sure enough, like most of the top people who came
out
of there.
Many fish. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that was a school of 100 to 250 plus fish. Like,
yeah, there were.
Just what I had seen was.
Yeah. And so speaking to that, like on the one dock where I caught my limit of fish and I left, I mean, I side scanned through there, across that dock a couple times and down scanned, and it literally looked like somebody like sneezed fish onto the screen. It was crazy. So yeah, you're right. I think they were just funneling in there. And even out there off that one point as you go into it where that those pillars are,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was just tons of fish.
Creek.
Yeah, there was tons of fish stacked on that 2 days prior to the tournament. I didn't see any size there, but there were a bunch of fish stacked there.
And that's whenever we had talked about the tournament beforehand, I thought the lower end, it's got more fish, but generally it's smaller fish. And so, it's the people that went up, who knows? I mean, they did good. That was the day the weights came down and those little bit smaller average fish played, and the guys down south did great.
Yep. So you finish in the money there. You get in the 20s. Come home. You get to take a check. You're already signed up for Lake Fork. You head straight from Logan Martin to Lake Fork, I'm assuming, or did you make a stop at home?
Yeah, I stayed home till my first day on Lake Fork was Wednesday morning. But granted, I'm only to get to the north end of Lake Fork, like Running Creek area, man, I'm like 3 hours and 50 minutes away. Like, I've spent a lot of time down there.
Nice.
It's not that far. Yeah. So now I came home for a couple days and just pretty much hoped that everything that happened at that Hobie had flip-flopped, and it did.
Right.
It was like,
it did.
You just like how that tournament went down at Hobie, like that time of the year, I had never spent very much time in that part of the lake during that time of the year. So I was honestly really hoping that everything flip-flopped, and for the most part, it really did. Like, I know they were like all the MLF guys were on Athens today, but yesterday, like I felt like you saw those guys that stayed in really staying water on the north end do better. And the guys that just chose to sight fish for 4 straight days. I mean, it was kind of, a little bit of both of that, which the cool thing about having that dirty water on Lake Fork for this tournament was your spawning fish were a lot shallower.
Yeah.
And that, depending on where you were, made it where you were the only ones that could get to them. Because like I was paddling 30 and 40 yards into a foot of water to get to several fish that I had.
Wow. Was that part of the strategy too, to stay away from the MLF guys and the spectators and all that?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I've been on Lake Fork since I was 11 years old. And I mean, I knew every creek I wasn't going to go in. I mean, I may not have known the ones I was going to go in, but I knew the ones I wasn't going in.
That's important. Eliminating.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I chose to not go into that glade and the little canies and, the thing, like those northern creeks that have a ton of grass and always have, big spawning bays in them.
Yeah.
And I mean, in return, like I really didn't see that many people. That I caught an 832 during the tournament. It was like 22 and 7.5, and that fish was there on Friday. There were several MLF guys that came in and tried to catch it, and neither one of them caught it, fortunately. Which, I mean, it still ended up going like straight back, so I don't know if it would have mattered. But,
right.
That was pretty much it. Like a couple guys tried to catch that fish, like in particular, and they couldn't really. They could see it, but you really couldn't get the angle to it. And like, it was the first of like 2 other 6-pounders in the next 10 yards that they really couldn't even see. So it was very fortunate little area. It really was.
Nice. Wow. So what's your bedding bait of choice?
I don't think it matters. I mean,
okay.
Man, I really don't. I've caught, I know for a fact in like probably 2009 or 8, I caught the same 7.5-pounder on fork 3 times in 2 days.
Yeah.
Like all on the same bait, And like with these fish in particular, they're so pressured that just changing from like a watermelon lizard to like a white lizard wasn't really going to do anything. Like, it was totally the fact that I'd hit them on the head for 30 minutes with the same rage
just
bug.
taking them
like
off.
That's solely what it was.
Fair enough.
And it's like, and I mean, I've always said it, and it's true. If you have a bedfish that's going to stay on the bed, that's a catchable fish at some point.
Yep.
I mean,
you just got to stay.
You do, yeah. I mean, it's taken me 4 hours to catch some bedding fish, but like, if that fish will actually stay there, like, it will get irritated enough to bite at some point.
Yeah.
And the low light conditions, so it was kind of, it really was a perfect storm. Like, the water fell out like 6 inches, and we had low light. So yes, I could barely see those fish the day before, but you pulled 6 inches down, they stayed there, and it was low light. They were still pretty visible. Like, it was kind of like, I know that screwed up a lot of people, and maybe some of my other areas on the lake, it probably would have, messed it up more, but that area it didn't, because it was, it was deeper there. Like, boats couldn't have gotten there, but boats could get closer to those than they could at my other areas.
Gotcha. So was the wind a factor at all for you?
It was. And I mean, in kind of in the negative context to a degree.
Right.
All week I was catching my fish on a buzzbait. I was catching 100 inches on a buzzbait, 90 inches on a buzzbait, like, no problem. But I was catching bedding fish on a buzzbait, which, like, I really don't ever do that much other than on really pressured bodies of water. But a lot of my fish all week were coming, throwing a buzzbait, 12 to 15 times over a bed, and it finally coming up and hitting it. But it was so calm that morning. Like, I caught a fish like first cast. In second cast, I threw in there, and that big one rolled over it, and I never got another bite on a buzzbait from a bedding bass. I mean, I ended up catching plenty on a buzzbait, just like looking for other ones. But it wasn't like earlier in the week when those fish had first pulled up. Those females were coming a long ways to eat stuff. Yeah. They really, really were.
Yeah, and you saw that. Yeah, you saw that did. Live on MLF as well. The guys were cracking them on frogs and buzzbaits. Yeah. Doing exactly what you're talking about. Instead of fishing underneath them, fishing over the top of them. And then Saturday, that just really didn't play out at all. Very consistent with what you're talking about in your bite. So I love this dynamic, and I made a post in the Bass Nation group. I said, who else is watching MLF just looking for kayakers? Because I was. I mean, I watch MLF anyway, but I was really looking to see who was out there on the water, because what I wanted to see was how that interaction was playing. You've got the MLF guys competing for their livelihood. You got the kayak guys competing for their livelihood in some cases, like yours. And how does that play out? I really didn't see it a lot. I saw a couple kayakers in the background, really shallow, but I didn't really see any other interaction. So maybe you can kind of bring that story to life for us. Like, what was that interaction like with the MLF guys, before, during, and after the tournament?
So there was a few good ones. If you must have missed live for a little while, because there was one really good one.
I can't watch it all day.
Okay, yeah, I won't completely bring that one to light. But there was some that I know James Watson, for example, he was really fired up that we were getting that much attention. And I thought that was really, really cool. Like, he was really fired up that we did have an event at the Classic, that we were here. So, I mean, that was cool, and I know a lot of those other guys, there were several people. I mean, I won't name people, but, there's certain people that were just like, there's like zero respect for any of these people. And I mean, obviously all parties probably feel the same way. I mean, it's not like when you pull in a spawning creek or a spawning pocket, it's not like it's rocket science. You pretty well know the best spot of it, and they know it, you know it, so it's like there's not much, like, you're both going to the same spots,
And you're going to be upset no matter who's in there, whether it's another boat or a kayak. So
absolutely.
So how do you handle that, right? So for maybe someone who's new to the sport and hasn't experienced this yet, they're going to at some point. The spawn seems like it's going to be a little bit actually more delayed this year. So far, what I'm seeing weather-wise. So for people who are coming up on that and that may experience that, what do they do?
Man, it's sometimes. I mean, I try to be vocal to the point, that I need to be. I didn't have the only MLF person I saw on Saturday was Kevin Van Dam, and he probably didn't get more than 100 yards from me, and he was fishing the wrong side of the bank and didn't catch a fish. So
Yeah.
I didn't have any problem from MLF guys at all. Like like I said, in practice, a couple guys tried to go catch that 8-pounder, but that was it. I mean, I kind of got out of their way, obviously. But I mean, man, other than that, it's just I try to, in being someone that came from a boat, I feel very much under the belief that you really have to give way to the person that has the most in it. I mean, I know in this case it wasn't us, but it almost always is us.
Right.
People don't realize that, but most of the time when we are on the water, we are fishing for the most money. But in this case we weren't, and I don't know how that would have been for me personally this weekend.
Had that situation came up, say you and Kevin were both wanting to fish for that same bedding bass that you both found in practice.
And you're in a 1-day event versus multiple rounds. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's very, I know the only other time I've really ran into it was when John Cox won the FLW on Wheeler. And I never had anybody around me then either. But yeah, no, I hate it too. Like it bothers the fire out of me. Because I mean, I do know what those guys are fishing for, and I know they got a lot more on the line than we do.
Right.
But yeah, it's a tough one. It really is.
Yeah, but at the same time, we talk about they've got a lot more on the line, right? But at the same time, right? You got, it's not really comparing apples to apples either. On our scale, this is a huge tournament, right? And this is one that not only from a prestige standpoint, but it's a big payday. It's a big payday as well. And it's early in the season. It's going to help fund your season, especially for anglers like yourself who are really doing this at that quote unquote pro level. So, I feel what you're saying 100% though. You lean towards the person who's got the most invested. But in this case, I agree. It would have been tough for me as well, to, give up a spot or a fish like that. And I think, Dan, you said like it's a multi-day thing. So, you've got more opportunities. I don't. Today's my day. You come back tomorrow and catch this fish that's on this bed. So, but very cool. So, well, everything works out great for you. I mean, you got this awesome trophy sitting behind you, which is amazing.
Good looking trophy too.
Yeah, you take first place. You walk away with a Bassmaster trophy, which is amazing. I can't even imagine what that feels like. Now you're double qualified for next year's classic. So talk to us a little bit. How are you feeling? What's it like?
Man, I still look at pictures like every day. I was looking today. Obviously I was beyond fired up. I mean, it was Lake Fork has meant so much to me over the years in general. Like, I mean, it was like for me, winning a tournament in Florida or Texas is the ultimate thing. I mean, Texas or Tennessee is really big too, but like that's the three big for me. It's like Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, and it's like I don't know. Yeah, like it seems like getting it done in those states means more. I don't know. This could just be me, but
I like it.
Yeah. I still am beyond. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, I really have been. That lake's phenomenal. I mean, it's like, and I've said it several times already this week. Like, I had honestly never seen a tournament set up better to be in a kayak than it was this week. I mean, we were at such an advantage of those guys. Like, I think they, like, what was winning on Saturday, 52 pounds or 54
Yeah,
pounds?
it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't great.
It would have been so easy to break. Like, I mean, you could have smoked it from a kayak.
That's awesome.
It was dumb. Yeah. So I mean, it was that, and like that being new to me. Like, I'm so much more of a deep water person, and like being able to pull the trolling motor up and go into 8 and 12 inches of water and catch really quality fish. Like, that was big for me in general. It really was. I mean, not just winning the tournament just for a whole year. It helped me a lot.
It's awesome, man.
And we had asked the people in the last show, and you've done great in these single-day events and multi-day. Do you have a preference? If this is a first year and maybe they're going to make some changes next year, would you like to see Bassmaster go to a more than one day event?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the more days of fishing you have, the stronger patterns hold. You know, like 3-4 days of national championship, you always see the strongest things hold. You know, just like we were talking about on Lake Fork yesterday, you saw the north end of the lake hold. So it's like when you're around the most fish, like you want it to be longer because you know you have a better chance of someone, throwing a crankbait and covering a lot of water and getting 5 bites, So yeah, I mean, I love having those 3 and 4 day tournaments, but on the flip side for this event, no, I loved the 1 day tournament. I mean, I couldn't have went and caught 100-something inches, I don't think. My other water that was protected from boats was like 94, 95 tops, maybe a little more.
So probably would have been close then, huh?
It would have, yeah, probably, yeah. I actually had more fish over there. It was just a lot more 4-pounders. They weren't nearly as big, but.
And yet, cool. We're talking about that buzzbait. Is there a certain one that you favor over others? Do you have like a heavy cover, more of a cover one than an open water one, or?
Yeah, Sam's smiling over here. He already knows.
Little juice, man. Little juice.
Man, the finesse series accent Jacob Wheeler.
Yeah,
that's been it. And I caught like a 22 on that this week, a 21 something. Got a lot of good ones on it.
Dude,
so many 18-inchers. Like I caught so many 17 to 18-inch fish on that thing. Like on Saturday, I didn't use any of them, but I did catch quite a few.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you would think like a buzzbait's a buzzbait, but I just don't get it. Like there's 2 baits that blow my mind, right? And this is gonna sound like a sponsor plug, so warning, it's gonna sound that way, but it really isn't. So there's 2 baits I just don't understand, and it's that Jacob Wheeler, specifically the finesse. Both are great. The original is amazing with a frog on it. But I love throwing the Jacob Wheeler finesse with a mini scrub is the trailer that I most use on it. And I just don't understand why it gets bit so much more than other buzzbaits. I mean, I'm not saying you can't get bit on another buzzbait. I have, but it just catches fish. And then Wicked Weights, another company that I obviously represent, we have like a little tungsten underspin, right? There's others out there like it. There's others that almost look identical to it. But it, for some reason, just catches fish anywhere I go all the time. I don't know if it's just a mental thing for me or if it is actually something about the design. The only thing that I can say is like the way the blade comes off, the pitch to the angle of that blade is a little different than others. I don't know what it is. So what do you think? Do you think it's a confidence thing? Do you think it's a sound thing? Like, what makes these baits so much different than any other? Because I
think it's a couple things. For me, so they're only a 5/16 buzzbait. Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's lighter than most. It's kind of like the size of like most finesse jigs or something. I can land them way more subtle. And it's like, especially like short casts, like if I was like really like short fishing, like a 3/8 spinnerbait or something, like I caught a lot of fish on a buzzbait within 10 to 12 feet of my kayak this week. And a lot of that was probably just with really, really subtle presentations, in between that short distance. So for me, it's some of that, and it's a lot of it's, man, it's really good on big grass flats too. Like, I mean, you can totally burn it out there. Like, I mean, you can throw it a long ways. You can skip it really, really good because you have a skirt. But, I actually, like, I found the original first. I mean, I love the original. Like, I've had a lot of, like, 50 to 60, fish days on it. But, no, when I travel around, the finesse one seems to be a lot better. It really does.
Yeah, I smoked them on lacrosse up there every time we went last year. Just tore them up on it. Now, see, Accent is Indiana based. They're out of Indianapolis. They're right here, home for me. So I've been around it for a long time. So I love hearing other people, and it's really nationwide. It's just been a cash cow for so many. Jacob Wheeler just smoked them and won a Bass Pro Tour event on an Accident River special, his signature series. But so that's interesting to me that that you did that. When do you start busting out the buzzbait? Like what water temps? Because you have maybe 60s to 65 there.
Yeah,
so like 55 or.
Yeah, it was more like I was catching a lot of fish in the 50s on it for sure.
Yeah.
It was definitely more of. Kentucky Lake 3 years ago, I was on a really good buzzbait pattern with 56 to 57. But it's 52 and above. You're going to see some really good fish come from it, and if you get bit on it, it's going to be a really good one too.
Right. So you're not going to go out and crack them on it, but
yeah, you may not catch a ton, but you're going to really get some really big cruisers, and you start to see cruisers in February.
Right.
It's not about the water temperature as much about what the fish are doing. You catch a really sunny February day, you have fish in 3 to 7 foot of water, which, will come up and, be fairly aggressive. So, yeah, for me, I don't know. I remember the coldest I've ever caught him on is probably 51. I was on a tournament in Dardanelle on the Arkansas River where I remember the big bass being caught on a black frog on 48-degree water. Yeah. And I remember it being so cold that I had gloves on and was throwing a shaky head on a spinning rod. I remember it being horrible, but yet we came in and big bass was on a frog.
How did you decide to do that though? What made you think, okay, it's 48 degrees, it's cold, I can barely feel my hands, I need to throw a frog?
I don't know.
You don't know? You just tied it on, picked it up?
Yeah, we were throwing rattle traps and speed traps,
Yeah.
So,
okay. All right.
Yeah.
It's just intuition sometimes is all it is.
Yeah.
You can't, it's nothing planned, right? So interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit, speaking of planning, let's talk a little bit about planning. You are a master, I think, at prep. It seems like you always come into a tournament really knowing what you're gonna. It seems like you've got a game plan before you ever get there, or at least have identified where you need to start. You really do a good job of that. I can't talk tonight. So I know Dan wants to talk to you a little bit about this part of it too, because in addition to having a great game plan, you've got a really awesome setup. Tournament setup. You've got the rig outfitted. You've got this awesome new kayak that we want to talk to you about. So let's talk a little bit about that and some of that preparation that you do, and kind of what you're outfitted with.
Yeah, if you don't mind, let's start from the top, your van. We launched together at Logan Martin, and you just kind of blew me away. I've seen it online, and you're somebody who does it so often that somebody who's really worked out all the kinks, and you have everything for kayak fishing for you figured out. Tell me about that van, man, the van, because when I thought, oh, it's got this van, and that's cool. But then whenever you launched your boat from the van, you backed it all the way up to the water, that's when you had me. Well, that's badass. Yeah. So tell me about the van. Do you camp in there and the whole deal?
I do. I put a Murphy style bed on the side of it, so it kind of it recesses on the side of the wall, but it lays down over the top of the kayak. Just with a perfect amount of clearance. I actually fitted it for a pro angler, but it works perfect for the new canoe as well. But yeah, no, it's pretty sweet. I'm able to get up so much later than people because I stage everything the night before. As soon as I touch the water, everything's ready. I'm not really looking for anything. I'm hooking a battery up, and that's pretty much the gist of it. Other than that, I may put a couple rods up, but I try to not really ever have that many rods sticking up. But yeah, other than that, no, when I shove off, we're pretty much game time.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a big deal right there. Just getting a little bit more sleep, being more prepared, just the mental kind of clearing out your mind of having things to be worried about. Obviously that's working for you. And now you made a couple of changes. First, you went to Westbrook. I think everybody knows about Westbrook and Atlanta, just outside there. Great company. They're doing a lot of things. And you went to New Canoe. And the thing with that, and I think kind of the big growth of the sport and everybody's looking at with Bassmaster coming on board, I think there's this big transition happening now in the motors. I know it to me. I'm in a Titan, and I'm like, how do I put it down tight? How do I put spot lock on that Titan? Like I need to figure this out. So, just seeing some things that you could do with your kayak spot lock sitting on points. Tell us about that and how it's changed how you fish.
I mean, it's in the two tournaments that I have fished with it, and it's not. I've had a spot lock for 2012. I've had a spot lock, I guess, for almost 8 years now. So I mean, I'm not new to having a spot lock. I am a little new to having it on a kayak. And I did have one 3 years ago. I feel like it was kind of a little new for kind of the technology of the boats and motors and things. But now, man, it's been really, really good. Like at Logan Martin, I was fishing little small creeks that had eddy breaks on them that were, 5 miles an hour current ripping on them, and I was spot locking on them and staying right there.
I can't imagine a more perfect scenario for that than fishing upriver during that event.
Yeah, and that was kind of one of the reasons I gravitated that way, maybe. That, and I knew I wanted to get away from people. But I mean, in this event, like the Lake Fork event, it was kind of the opposite. I don't know if I've even really said it that many. I don't think I've said it on a podcast yet. My motor actually blew out on me during that tournament. I ended up paddling for a long ways. It tripped a breaker. It wasn't like the motor. It was actually just a breaker. So I was able to get out there, but I ended up paddling almost, I guess, close to 6 miles. It was a pretty good Lord. Yeah, it was a long way.
Do you have extra breakers now for the boat, in the boat?
I think I'm just going to bypass the breaker. I think I'm just going to either, that's what I'm thinking. I upgraded the wiring. I think I'm just going to bypass the breaker.
Okay. We'll Interesting.
And why the pursuit? Well, at least in that situation, you're sponsored by New Canoe, obviously. Yeah. And having a pursuit, it's a great paddling boat. So even though you had a paddle, not that, and you had a great paddling boat to do it in, why the pursuit over the Frontier 12?
Recessed rod holders. That was the biggest thing, because for me, when I prep my kayak the night before, I put 6 rods on each side of me. So I'll never take more than 12. Generally, I'll try to take 8, somewhere in there. Which is pretty cool. I only had 5 rods with me on Saturday. It's the fewest rods I've fished with in probably 2 years. I mean, it was like I had a Cinco, I had a Buzzbait, and I had an 1/8 ounce Rage Bug, and I mean I had a punching rod too. I'd caught a really big fish punching too, but I didn't really want to do it.
So what is it about having those rods in those recessed holders like that versus, say, setting up a black pack to carry 4 to 8 rods? Vertically.
For example, like this weekend, I fished out of the back of my boat the entire week. Like my net, I know y'all are probably familiar with the Pursuit. My net was on the back end of the kayak. It was setting where my battery was. All the rods were down, and I was flipping out the back of it and netting all the fish out the back.
I've seen you do that, and I've seen Derek Brundle do that, and others. That's personally not. There's been situations where I've been on the water where I'm like, man, I really wish I could cast out the back. But do you intentionally set up that way, or do you just like having the ability to do it?
In this situation, it was really, really nice because I was able to get closer to the fish without having more kayak closer to them. And that was like a big game changer, because you've got a whole lot more boat on the front end than you do a boat at the back end. So being able to stand up on the seat and fish off that back end, I was closer to them without having boat closer to them.
Right. And you got that sight fishing scenario. That's why you're standing up on the seat.
Yep. So that was the reasoning in this situation. Obviously I wouldn't always want to do it, because generally I would have a foot control, trolling motor with, a bow mounted trolling motor and should be going out the front. But yeah, it was really nice being able to get closer to them without giving them more, So.
Yeah.
So is that how you do it? You do it with the wireless foot control rather than the hand deal?
I use both. I think it was like 2 years ago you were able to use both. Which in my first one that I had, you couldn't use both. It was just either or. So that was like another like new modification they've made that's been really, really good.
And is that part of the reason for that pursuit, is having that open deck space in which you can have that foot control?
Yep, because when I had my first one, I actually had my seat over the top of my tackle.
Yeah.
I had it over the top of my tackle, and I would just like reach under me to get my tackle. I haven't done that yet, but I might. I mean, we'll see. Like I kind of want to go to the cooler thing, like Derek Brundle. He's got a pretty sweet setup with that, like being able to keep the tackle under him. So
interesting.
We'll
Interesting. Yep. Okay. Very cool. So when you're going into an event, right? Kind of backtrack here a little bit. You're going into an event. How do you prep for? How do you put together your game plan? Let me ask it that way. How do you put together that game plan of like where? Because you usually practice what, 3 days? That's pretty much your average. 2.5, 3 days, right? I know this about you just from following you and being at events with you. So how do you kind of formulate that game plan? Like, walk us through what's day 1, 2, and 3 look like for you.
Extremes and then refine. I mean, that's pretty much that's the MO. I mean, whatever that kind of like shapes down to for like whatever time of the year it is. But I mean, that's essentially what I'm getting at. We're trying to find out. Like, I mean, like take Fork or Logan Martin, for example, your big extremes where you could fish in the lake and you could fish way up the river. Some answers in between that. It always is. I mean, it's like, before you get there.
Yeah.
And Fork was the same way. Like, you knew the south end really, really played because of better watercolor 2 weeks ago. But on the other hand, you knew that the north end of Fork is where the majority of bass have always spawned on Lake Fork. And it was like the water color and the water temperatures like varied so much from all of those areas.
Right.
I mean, it's like, it's about seeing those extremes, but it's also about finding that happy median that you're okay with fishing. Like, you can push a rattle trap pattern in 58, 60-degree water. You can push a sight fishing pattern in 58-degree water. So it's like, it's kind of somewhat about finding what you want to do and maybe kind of run that across the lake. Things always work, across a pretty wide range of watercolors / water temperatures, but it's kind of like getting something you're comfortable with and finding where it works.
Nice. Very good. Cool.
Definitely have it figured out.
It's just my theory. I don't know.
It's a good theory. And it's interesting. Today I recorded me and Alan Reed for our podcast, Use Your Kayak Bass. We recorded with a sports psychologist, and we talked a lot about routine and finding your balance and finding out what makes you tick and understanding that. And a lot of the conversation that we had, I'm listening to you talk, and I'm thinking back as I'm listening to you on some interactions I've had with you, and just seeing you and following you in the sport. And you really do seem to have that mental side of the game down really well. We've all had our moments, right? But you're a very consistent angler, and a lot of times when you see those really consistent anglers that are at the top, they don't always have to be in first, second, or third, but always, in the race, always have their name at the top of the list. It's the mental side that really comes down to it. Of course, there's skill and will, but that mental side is so important, and you really seem to have that. What do you contribute that to?
Man, probably I mean, honestly, probably by seeing a lot more money won in the last 30 minutes of a tournament than the first 30 minutes. You know, I mean, I know it sounds crazy because you hear everyone say it, but I mean, last year, for example, I can't remember if the first one was Gunnersville, but it was something like 4 or 5 tournaments in a row. I had over a 3-inch coal in the last 15 minutes. Like, and it started with like that 9-pounder I had at Gunnersville, like that 24-incher, and then it was like I had a 19-inch spot at Nickajack, and it was just like it kept happening, and it was just like you're never out of it till you're really out of it, you know. And it's like so many of these tournaments end up being so close. It's hard to stay in it for 8 or 9 hours. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if for one, like you get a limit and you start fishing really lax, like that's easy to do, you know, where the exact opposite of that, you can kind of get a limit and start fishing really aggressive, you know, and try to really move up. And it's, I don't know.
Dude, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
And that speaks to me because that's something that I really need to work on. Because I'm so into prep and study and research and putting that game plan together. But on tournament day, when something goes wrong, I can deal with the first one or the second one. But by that third time, when it's not happening for me, or I make that third mistake, or whatever it is, I start to unravel a little bit. And Logan Martin, that happened to me. You know, I wasn't getting fish in the boat for whatever reason. I got off the water like an hour and a half before the tournament ended.
Yeah.
I get off the water. I'm talking to Mike Cheatman at the ramp. Poor Mike. Oh my gosh. I don't know if everybody knows what he went through prior to that tournament, but you know, he's hurting and everything, so he's got a good excuse to get off the water. My only excuse was I was just ticked off and cold and wet and decided to get off the water early. I load up the kayak and the sun comes out, and you guys were out there catching your best fish of the day in that time, you know. And so that's so key, and I hope people listening are taking that away. Like, you're really never out of it. Another great example of this, the opposite of my example. Ott Defoe today.
Oh, that was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Final day of MLF. He's sitting in what, like 4th, 5th place. They're all really close in the 32-pound range, and the guy pops off 30 pounds in less than 30 minutes, and blows everyone out of the water and never moves off of his spot. I could do a whole podcast about what he did in that 30 minutes. It's just awesome. I learned a lot from that. The guy was having people he was asking people to come run over his spot with a motor, which is amazing to me. I've never seen anything like it. But you know, just another example of exactly what you're talking about. That last 30 minutes, and he won $100,000. You know, had he, you know, given up or mentally got out of it, that could have meant, you know, him going home with what, $10,000. You know, so that's huge. That's huge. So I commend you on that, and I hope listeners take away how important that mental side of things is, because not only are you a great angler, but your mental game is so strong.
And I have to ask you, I don't mean to get us off track. Dude, what is that behind you? Is that an old dog that you got stuffed, or a black coyote?
Yeah, it's a black coyote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this thing back there. I'm like, what's going on here? It's kind of got a smaller nose. I couldn't tell what it was.
There's a little bit of everything.
You got a
animals in here.
Whole wall of death going on there.
Yeah, it's like 37 or something.
And those are all your kills or what?
No, they're not all mine. All my roommates are they're all about like me. They're not fishermen, they're more hunters. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about home life. Let's get to know you outside of the tournament world and the bass fishermen. So tell us a little bit about what you got going on there at home.
Yeah, so usually when I'm home, my parents own a investment company where it's like they manage like an ice cream shop and an outdoors company and t-shirt shop, like all on the same. Like they're literally all three next door with like one office in between them all. So
Nice.
I usually go in there like on Monday and Tuesdays. It's all kind of been shut down for the last week or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, no, I've not done like anything the last 2 days. I went out to the lake for a little while today and just kind of messed around, but we'll probably do the same thing tomorrow. I've got a little lake that turns on pretty early, so I may go check it out tomorrow. But yeah, it's this next 60 days will be kind of weird. We'll see.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Everything goes with all that, but yeah, it's been a relaxed and very restful couple days, which has been nice. So.
Yeah. So you bring up the 60 days. Let's talk about that real quick. So for those of you that may be listening to this in a few months or in a year or two, watching this on YouTube or whatever, right now we are going through something no one on this planet has ever seen before. And it's, what are they referring to it as? COVID-19, the coronavirus, whatever it is. And so much, not that we've not seen a disease like it before, but we've never seen the reaction that we're getting. And we're not going to get into the politics or any of that. This show's not about that. But I think it's important to talk about the fact that there's something major going on and make sure we reference it. But yeah, KBF, FLW, Major League, like all of these entities have suspended tournaments moving forward after this weekend.
Yep.
Which is nuts. Guys who spend all of the fall and winter prepping for their season and planning out their tournament trails and where they're going to hit, that's all up in the air now. On the back side of this, nobody knows where things are going to land, what tournaments they're going to be able to fish, what they're not going to be able to fish. It's going to make everything interesting, and we don't know. It could last longer. It could be shorter. But for now, we know that it's 60 days. And that things will try to be rescheduled. Some may not. It's going to be really interesting because some of these events are going to be stacked on top of each other. Big events may land on the same weekends. You're not going to get away from it. So it's going to change everybody's games quite a bit, their seasons quite a bit. And, I don't even know what I'm doing, let alone to even begin to think how they're going to play this stuff out from the organizational level. But with that, what are you gonna do with 60 days, man? Like, are you gonna still fish? You gonna try and create your own tournaments? Like, what are you gonna do at this time?
It seems like there's several people that are trying to do that.
Yeah. there is.
I don't know if I'm gonna join in on that or not, but
right.
No, we've actually had quite a few. It's actually been kind of crazy. I'm a guide on the Little Red River in Heber Springs, Arkansas. We've actually had a lot of calls over the last few weeks.
I bet.
So I'll be guiding a decent amount. Like, I know the 1st of April I'll be pretty busy. So may try to push that along a little bit. But, man, at the same time, I've kind of been enjoying it. I kind of want to go back down to Texas. There's a lake out in West Texas that's kind of been on fire lately. So I may go back down there and try to...
West Texas, like Fort Phantom, like out that way?
Yeah, like more, a couple hours like west of Fort, like not super out there, but a little ways out of the Metroplex for sure.
There's only so much water out in West Texas,
That is true, yeah.
I lived in
Dan's zeroing in as we speak.
No, I'm not going to go out there.
He's on point.
I was stationed in Abilene for 3 years. There's not that much water.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I really, somebody like you, you're on everybody's top 5. You do this for a living. At least you have, usually, like you said, you have a little bit of something you can do in your off time and you guide. For somebody like you, this affects, in our industry more than anybody else, pretty much. So it's it's a tough time, really. Our thoughts going out to you and everybody else who's being affected right now. It's tough.
Yeah, and just remember, try and stay positive, use this time to, spend more time with your family. This is a weekend that I was going to be gone. Now I'm going to have a whole weekend with my family, and your friends, spend time with your friends. Obviously, no more than 10 people, of course.
Yeah.
Don't get too close. I think there's a lot of positive that can be found. This is a great time to just kind of take a breather and just relax from the grind for a minute. Do some prep, do some motor work or some, rigging or whatever it is, and get yourself prepared, because when it does come back, it's going to be balls to the walls for a lot of guys, because these tournaments are going to stack on top of each other, or they're going to be canceled. And right now everyone's saying we're going to postpone them. So get ready. And listen to a bunch of Paddle and Fin in your downtime.
That's right.
Get caught up. Check out Angler and all those great things, and find some great content.
And one other thing I wanted to ask you, Cody, is being somebody who's you're at the top of the kayak fishing game. I mean, you just are. Do you have any goals that you can share with us? Like, you've done so much now. What do you have career goals in the kayak industry? Do you see, if you came from a boat like I did, do you see yourself going back? What are you thinking?
Great question.
Man, for me this year, I mean, in all honesty, I mean, not to like already fulfilled goals, but I wanted to win big tournaments. Like, that was a big thing that, like, I mean, I'm sure y'all know, like, I've kind of lacked in for a little while now. Like, I've had a lot of third, second, and fourth place finishes. Not that I haven't won some at the right times, but it's been a little while. So it was, like, targeting a little better fish was really bigger for me. Like, that was one thing I wanted to do a better job of this year. But no, I mean, other than that, like, I really want to make it to the TOC for the Hobie, and I really want to make it in the 10 for the KBF. And I actually haven't even fished a KBF tournament this year, so that's pretty hopeful. But it's like you said,
right.
A lot of things are going to stack up in the end this year, and a lot's going to change. So I will be there, and I will be fishing them, and we'll see. We'll see how it works out.
Well, you're building up a nice little, a kitty to go and fish those at the end of the year right now. So
yeah. And I want to be respectful of your time, but also I want to hit something real quick, because you just kind of reminded me of it. We have this thing, with everything that's going on with the disease and everything, or the disease, virus, whatever you want to call it, right? The KBF has canceled the Pro Tour, converted all of the events to Trail Series stops, and just completely got rid of the Pro Tour Championship. I know you're someone that was on the Pro Tour, planning on fishing Pro Tour events. How do you feel about that? Are you bummed out about it? Are you excited about it? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, for last year, for me, it was really good, because it was kind of more of like almost a buy-in. Like, I was able to make a lot of money on that last year. So, I mean, I'm sure it will hurt me some, but it won't, I don't know. I mean, it's not that huge of a deal. I think KBF backing out and doing just a trail series tournaments with that is really going to be big. I mean, honestly, it's going to help me, because I'm going to have a lot better chance to qualify for the 10 and Angler of the Year and things like that. Because I know a lot of people were gonna struggle to be able to make enough KBF events. Because so many tournaments fall on the same day, So it was like having more KBF tournaments helped a lot, in my opinion, for me personally.
I agree. And for me, it was a little bit of that. And it was too, like, I conceptually love the idea of the Pro Tour, but you really still had to be focused on the trail, because a lot of the prestige and the money and is still there. And so it was actually kind of a relief for me to see them do that. So, yeah. And I totally understood where they were coming from. I mean, they've already are stretched thin at KBF, limited resources, and now with this all on top of that, it was probably a good move, and that was before everything even further developed. So probably a great move for them as an organization, and I think for most anglers it was a better move as well. So cool. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that as well. So. All right. Well, with that being said, Dan, you got anything else, my man?
That's it. Thank you for being on show, Cody. Good luck. I'm sure we'll probably talk to you again later this year, and you and your family be safe, man.
Thank y'all. Yeah, y'all as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Take a second if you'd like to give a shout out to anyone and plug the socials if you'd like.
Man, New Canoe, like it was my second event with him, but it was huge. Like that high rise seat made a world of a difference this weekend. Motor Guide XI3, that spot lock and pinpoint, GPS accuracy was unbelievable. And it wouldn't even been possible without Dakota Lithium, 100 amp hour batteries and being able to go 21 plus miles. It's just insane. Like that wouldn't even be possible 5-10 years ago. So, like, that's really cool stuff. Fish USA, I mean, they toted me around the country last year, and, we're continually off to a good start this year. So, in accent fishing, like I said, I thought I was going to be able to make it happen this week with it, but whenever the next week is.
A lot of season left.
Yeah, a lot of season left.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, thank y'all. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Anytime,
no problem,
man. Thank you.
Congratulations on all the big moves, and look forward to following you throughout the rest of the season. And I'm sure we'll have you on again to talk about another great victory. So.
Hope so. Thanks, Sam.
All right, no problem, man.
Great.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
Cody.
See you guys later. Bye.
Later, man.
Whoo!
Yeah.
Cody Milton.
Yeah, he's just on a different level, man. Anybody's list, he's top 5. He's amazing. He's living it. He lives it every single day. If he's not fishing at a tournament, he's out there. He's guiding. He lives it, and it shows why he's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. He's so good at prep, and he's so calm, cool, and collected all the time. He's never one that I feel like is overanalyzing or anything like that. And it's been awesome to not only, be around him on the road, but to watch his whole journey. Definitely a fan of his, and man, I think he would kick butt no matter if it was kayaks or bass boat tournaments or whatever. So but yeah, a lot of great insights there, and we covered a lot, so I hope everyone took some notes, because there was some knowledge dropped for sure.
Yeah, and here, let's go over the rest of the finishers there.
Let's do it.
You had Cody at 100.5, Dan Krispinski, 97 3/4. Third was Chad Dagley, 95. Jeremiah Smith at 94 3/4, and Lance Burris again, who just got picked up by Bonafide. Congratulations to him, with 95 and a half. And there was a lot of other tournaments that went on. First, you had Natural State Kayak Anglers, their kickoff fundraiser on Beaver Lake, had 49 people. And for a 3-fish limit, first you had Baron Meek with 62 1/4. That's right, 3 fish, 62 1/4. That was a mega bag there. Jason Cowell with 59 and Kyle Long with 57 1/2. Another tournament, 5-fish tournament, you had the Clarksville Area Fishing Group on Lake Barkley, 30 anglers, 5 fish. Thomas McCord with 70 3/4, Jim Rodriguez 68, and Rob Mixon with 65. Also, you had Southern West Virginia Kayak Anglers, had 43 people. This was a 2-day tournament where you could fish anywhere, any public water in West Virginia, from 7:30 a.m. Saturday to 9 p.m. on Sunday. These were all 14 March. First, you had Joe Farley with 86, Aaron Brown in second with 81 3/4, and Brad Richardson with 67 1/4. Next 2 other ones, you had Queen City Kayak Bass Fishing, and this was in conjunction with the Lake Norman Hobie tournament. This one it's a local club. They had some double dippers who both went Hobie and Queen City. This is ran by Vinny. We had on show not too long ago. Great guy. 132 anglers, 4-fish limit. They do. I think the only club in the country that does it. First, you had Marcus Smith with 72 3/4. Second was Melvin Yang with 72 3/4. They had same. I guess it went down to big fish. Third was Chris Grant with 72. And these numbers are stacked right all at same spot lake. Tyler Smith and fourth with 71 1/2, and Cameron Saxon with 70 1/2. And then at the Hobie B.A.S. same time, former KBF national champion, we had on not too long ago as well, Kurt Smits. Yeah, I believe he got third. We had him on. He got third at the Hobie on Seminole.
On a tear.
Yeah. Second, Melvin Yang, 173 1/2. Cole Clefman at 171 3/4, Ryan Lambert 171 1/2, and Jeremy Clefman, I guess their brothers maybe, family members, 169 1/2. So congratulations to all of them, and a lot of it's definitely getting to be that time of year where there's some big numbers starting to show and some good weather. So as long as Corona doesn't stop all the tournaments, it's the right time to be out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I wish we could get some of that good weather here in Indiana, man. It has been cold, windy, and rainy like every day. I'm excited tomorrow because it's going to be in the 60s and it's supposed to be rainy and 20-mile-an-hour winds. But I'm still thinking about going fishing just because it's the warmest weather I've seen since I've been home. Man, I wish we could get it. I do want to take a second, give another shout out to Kurt. Obviously we would have had him on this week had we not already just had him on. We want to share him with some of the other people. He's on another show tonight. But yeah, huge shout out to Kurt on that episode. We asked him what his goals were, and it was Angler of the Year and the TOC for Hobie, and he's doing it. He's doing it. You know what I'm saying? So he's got a win. He's got a 3rd place. He's right there in the mix. He's a strong candidate for that. I don't know if candidate's the right word, but he's in the mix, and he's doing exactly what he set out after. So I just want to give him kudos and shout out for that as well. So Kurt, if you're listening, my man, awesome job. Keep grinding. Keep getting it done.
I would like to know, now that he's done so well, does that push him out to going and trying the Delta tournament out, and is he going to try to make a run out there and go do that?
That's a great question. And then how does everything play out with this this whole virus pandemic craze that's going on? I had to pull my toilet paper roll out of the kayak and bring it in the house. My backup, it's no. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out and who can overcome, with what's going on. So
yep,
for sure.
So, yeah, everybody be safe out there.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in and listening to another episode of The Reel Down. We don't have much in the way of upcoming tournaments. We're going to talk about how we're going to proceed. Surely there's going to be some local stuff going on that we can cover. So stay tuned, and we'll let you know on the next episode what it is we're going to do moving forward through this crazy time. So anyway, thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you on the next episode of The Reel Down on Paddle and Fin Podcast.
Thanks for listening. Wear your PFDs.
Go check out the website, guys. Paddle, the letter N, and fin.com. Also check out YouTube, youtube.com/paddle and fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest, feel free to email us at paddle, the letter N, and fin @gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're doing giveaways, announcements, things like that at Facebook and Instagram at Paddle and Fin. Shout out to our show supporters, Rocktown Adventures, Loveland Canoe and Kayak, Hammered Lures, Fish Mob Lures, TRC Covers, Ketch Products. Go to ketchproducts.com. You can put the Paddle and Fin logo right on your catch board. Don't forget to go over and pick up your JigMasters Jigs. Use promo code PNF20 and save 20% today. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. It helps grow the audience, helps others find our podcast. So please drop a 5-star rating in on the podcast platform you're listening on. Don't forget about the recycled plastics program, you guys. Take your used plastic baits, put them in an envelope, mail them to the address in the show notes. Our man Eric Richards at Hammered Lures melts those down, makes new baits, and donates them to various chapters of Heroes on the Water.